And welcome to episode 10 of RaiderZone Podcast. As we made it 10 episodes now. It's a milestone in my opinion. So, big one coming up. Still nothing in the MLB, so we're just not going to talk about it at all. Hopefully, as we get in more into January, things start popping up as far as free agency goes. But one sport that is coming into full swing is basketball, and we are going to start with college basketball. For the men's, Gonzaga and Baylor stand defeated in the top two spots. Villanova moves into the third spot, while Texas and Iowa round out the top five in the Week 7 rankings. And for women's, Stanford and Louisville remain undefeated in the top two spots, while NC State remains at 3. UConn and South Carolina round out the top 5 in Week 7 rankings. Jacob, I'll start with you. What games over the past week did you enjoy, and what are you looking forward to in Week 8?
The games that I enjoyed, there was a lot of good games this week, I felt. But I'm going to say Michigan State and Rutgers, not necessarily a competitive game, but it showed me that Michigan State's still going to fight. It was a much-needed win for them against a team in the top 25. And what it showed for me about Rutgers was simply they're probably not as great as I once thought they were. They're still a really good team, probably will make the tournament, but they're not as high level in the Big Ten as I once thought that they would be. And then another Big Ten game, Wisconsin and Minnesota. It was a game that Wisconsin really needed to win, and they did. They came off a surprising loss to Maryland, really. So it was a good way for them to show me that they're resilient when they can battle adversity like how they did with the unexpected loss. And then Texas and Kansas, obviously, that was the game of the week before we were even looking at how these games went by. And I can say this. I think Texas is a serious tournament threat, potentially, if they keep up this level of play. I love Matt Coleman and Andrew Jones in the backcourt. Greg Brown and Kai Jones, they're also really good. So I think that this team is super deep and talented, just like how I've been saying, like how Gonzaga is. And to hand Bill Self his largest loss at home against a Kansas team that everybody thought was really good, and they still are pretty good, I just think now Texas shows that they are probably the best team in the Big 12. And to me, I think Gonzaga and Texas are the only two teams right now that I can feel confident in saying that they will probably make a deep tournament run thus far.
Yeah, I agree. Brendan.
Yeah, definitely have to agree with Jacob on that Texas-Kansas game. I did not see that blowout coming at all. And the Big 12 had a good week. Another upset that was in the top 10 was Oklahoma taking down number 9 West Virginia. At home, 5-4, 75-71. Oklahoma's has always been an underrated basketball program. They've sent a lot of talented guys to the NBA, and they just got another huge win against a really good West Virginia team. Annually, the Mountaineers are top 25, but always, have an upset loss like this. They always allow someone to knock them off like Oklahoma did. And then Alabama, these football programs having huge wins this week. They took down number 7 Tennessee 71-63. So a huge win there on the road for Alabama against a really good Tennessee team. A few games this week that I'm going to watch out for. Two teams that we've mentioned in the Big 12, Oklahoma at number 6 Kansas. Can the Jayhawks get back on track? The way they know how to play, 9-2 against a 6-2 Oklahoma team. Can the Sooners pull off another upset? And then North Carolina, one of the Blue Bloods who has been struggling this year and of years past, they play a really good number 19 Clemson team who is 9-1, 3-1 in the ACC. So the Tigers having a good start to their season. Can they get a huge win over North Carolina? Tar Heels really need to get consistently winning here to really get back on track and start playing well in conference play going into the conference tournament.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you guys talked about in the past week. A lot of good games. Kansas, Texas was a really fun one to watch, especially if you're a Horns Up fan. But what I'm looking forward to this next week is, of course, some more Big Ten action. The Big Ten has been really fun to watch. There's a few good games this past week as well. But number 8, Wisconsin at number 10, Michigan. Michigan's 9-0 to start the season. Wisconsin 9-2 has a few big wins over teams like Michigan State. So I'm trying to see who's who's the real team here and who's the pretender maybe, or if it's a good game, maybe they're both legit. But if one of them can blow out the other, it may show who could be a fraud potentially. But both teams playing very good basketball, both in the top 10 right now. So that's the game I'm looking forward to next Tuesday night, right before we hop back on. But Wisconsin, Michigan, that's the one to watch out for, in my opinion.
There's another huge game, Will, that I would watch out for too. Ohio State, not ranked, but you can't count them out. They play number 15 Rutgers.
Yeah.
On the road. Buckeyes and Scarlet Knights could be a really good one too.
You can't count on any Big Ten team, even if they're not ranked. They're still all like 8-4 or better.
Yeah.
But that will take us to the professional side of the sport, the NBA, as we're now 2 weeks into the season. Injuries keep popping up. KD has close contact. He's out for 4 games. So things just, we had the battle in every sport. We've seen it in football with guys missing a week or two because they were in close contact because they had COVID. We've seen it in college football. Trevor Lawrence missed 2 weeks for it. And now we're seeing it in the NBA. It's a part of the times, and one of the best is going through right now is Kevin Durant will be out 4 games, like I said before, for the Nets. But they didn't skip a beat last night. I mean, I thought maybe going up against a solid Jazz team, not having KD would hurt them. They never even trailed the game. They won 130-96, and they never at one point trailed. They scored first and took off. But after 2 weeks, guys, Sixers lead the East at 6-1, while the Lakers lead the West at 6-2. Brendan, I'll start with you. What games did you enjoy over the past week? What games catch your eye in the week ahead? And what teams are catching your interest early on?
Yeah, a lot of good games this past week. I've just been watching the Lakers night in and night out dominate thus far. Off to a 5-2 start. They had a huge win this past Sunday, I think it was, against Memphis, 108-94. LeBron had another double-double, 22 points and 13 rebounds. And the other LA team off to a hot start as well. And they took down a really good Suns team by 5, edging out Phoenix on the road, 112-107. Paul George put up 39 points, almost hitting 40. That's just crazy that he had a solid game like that. So, it is really, the West is really a battle of LA, right? Both the Clippers and Lakers putting on clinics night in and night out. Going to be really hard to knock them off if you're anyone kind of near that 10-7 mark in the Western Conference and even out in the East. But looking ahead here this week, a lot of good games on Saturday that I'm watching out for. The Magic and Mavericks, we know how solid Orlando is playing right now. Just kind of an underrated team at 5-2. Had that 4-0 start. They take on Dallas. Can they, hold Luka Doncic? He's been averaging 25 points per game. Off to a really good start for himself, but not a great start for the team. Can Dallas find a way to pull off the win over the Magic? And as I look at where the Western Conference is at right now, looking at Golden State, they're slowly starting to put things together. Steph Curry's kind of leading that team right now. We have never really seen him have to lead a team like LeBron has led a team. That's kind of what's going on right now with Golden State. They were off to that really bad start at the beginning of the season, losing to the Bucks and Nets in really horrible fashion. But they had a good win against Sacramento, a good win over Portland. They're on a 2-game win streak, and now they get set to play the Clippers tonight. Going to be a really telling game of where the Warriors are at.
Yeah, I agree. Warriors, a team that I'm watching out for. Interesting to see what Steve Kerr can do missing Klay Thompson. Last year, obviously not an ideal year, missing just about everybody on that team. But Klay Thompson comes down with an early injury once again, and now he's figuring out new pieces, got to mesh the team, get the chemistry on track in a 72-game season. Jacob.
Well, I like that Brendan touched on Steph Curry because that was actually my performance of the week. His 62 points against the Blazers, especially after Dame Lillard called him out and said that he has to carry the team. That just shows me that Steph's in the zone right now. I worry a little bit, though, because of his injury past, that if he's carrying too much of the offensive load, he might tweak those ankles again. But for right now, it's all good. I think that the Warriors could potentially hit their stride, could potentially make the top 6. But I think right now they're probably going to fall in the 7 to 10 range because you can't rely on Steph carrying you night in and night out. He's going to do his best, and he's definitely going to put up a lot of numbers, but you need to have guys like Wiggins and Oubre really helping him out, and Wiseman helping him out too. And some nights they haven't shown up, and I think that's ultimately going to hurt them. And then another game that I really liked this week was the Wizards and the Nets. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving each had a chance to put the game away with some buzzer beaters, but Washington ended up edging the Nets out by 1. And with the exception of last night, this is what I would say about the Nets. Offensively, one of the most dominant teams I've seen in recent years. But defensively, they play literally no defense. And that's what I think is going to hurt them in the end. And to me, they're adopting too much of Mike D'Antoni's style of play, like how he had in Houston. He's an assistant on the team, so he's obviously going to bring a lot of his offense and even some of his defense to the team. And what we always saw in Houston was he would put out teams with James Harden that would go out and they'd get you 125 points and they'd probably give up 130 points. So I think that's what we're seeing with Brooklyn here. And hopefully they can get that turned around because, like I said, offensively, I love to see the Brooklyn Nets on offense. The games that catch my eyes this week, I'd have to say every single game that involves the Philadelphia 76ers because this week they play the Brooklyn Nets, the Denver Nuggets, and the Atlanta Hawks. So the Nets and the Hawks are going to be real challenges just because of their offensive firepower and their Eastern Conference foes who are both off to – the Nets not necessarily a good start, but we all know what they can become, and the Hawks are off to a good start. And then the Nuggets just for the Jokic-Embiid matchup and just to see if the Nuggets can get back on track because they haven't necessarily had a great start. But the teams that are catching my interest, the 76ers for sure. I love how they are playing. I say it every single year. With Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, you're destined to contend in the Eastern Conference. And it looks like with guys like Seth Curry and Danny Green around them, it's the shooting that Ben Simmons lacks that's ultimately helping the Sixers right now. So they're going to prove to be crucial for the Sixers, and I think they can really contend if they continue to shoot well. The Suns, to me, they seem like just a regular season team. You always see a team like that. They get off to hot starts. They play good in the regular season. But when they played against the Clippers this week, they showed me that they might not be ready yet for playoff contention. I think they're going to make the playoffs. I think that they're going to be one of those top 6 teams if they continue to play like how they are in the regular season because they play hard. But I don't think they're going to do much in the playoffs just because Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, they're still so young. I don't think they're going to do anything with that. And finally, the Raptors off to their 1-5 start. I'm going to say I don't expect it to change that much. Obviously, they're not going to be that bad, but I don't think they're going to make the playoffs this year. And this is why. Kyle Lowry is not playing well. He's showing signs of aging. Pascal Siakam's not playing up to his full potential right now. And I'm telling you, the fact that they lost both Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol, that is huge for them. That was huge center depth. They probably had the best 1-2 punch at center last year, and now they're relying on Aaron Baines and Alex Len. So that's not necessarily going to help you out that much in the Eastern Conference. This team is not as deep as they have been in the past, and I just don't see them making the playoffs right now if they keep up this style of play.
Yeah, I agree. So far, a lot happening. I think what I'm looking most forward to this next week is some of these teams that are shocking the world right now, winning records in the playoff hunt. I know it's early on, so I shouldn't say playoff hunt, but they're in one of the top 8 seeds. Playing teams that we expected to be here, so like Jazz Knicks. Knicks starting at 4-3, they'll host the Jazz. I'm interested to see how the Knicks play in that one. Then also Warriors Clippers, another one I'm looking forward to. Can Steph keep up with that Clippers team? Like we said, we know he's leading the pack. Cavaliers Magic should be a good one, and other ones like that. It's going to be an interesting week to see a lot of these teams that are over that one game over 500 that are starting off good that we didn't expect to quite be here. See if they can keep it going. As far as teams catching my eye, I had Phoenix on my list, Jacob, just because it seems like everywhere Chris Paul goes, he automatically makes them a playoff team. He's one of those underrated players. You talk about LeBron. Wherever LeBron goes, he's going to go to the playoffs, if not the finals, every year. Chris Paul, his whole career, has done that. Oklahoma City had no business being in the playoffs last year, but because of Chris Paul, they were. And I think him joining that Phoenix squad can make them dangerous. But like you said, it's going to be tough. They're not quite there yet when it comes to competing with those LA teams. So we'll see maybe as the season goes on, guys like Ayton and Booker develop a little more and the chemistry gets better with the team all around. But I'm interested to see how they build. And then again, some of those teams that are surprising me, I figured Orlando would be in the top 8, but I didn't expect them to be 2 this far into the season. So teams like Orlando, Cleveland, New York, Chicago, even 4-4 right outside the hunt. Teams like that, they're catching my eye, or at least seeing if they can keep that going, or if it's just 2 weeks of good basketball, So that is it for basketball. Obviously, as the season gets more into it, we'll have more to talk about. But football is the sport to talk about right now, as a lot happening in college football over the past week, and we have the championship coming up, and obviously the NFL, the playoffs are in. So we'll start with college football, as we see all the New Year's Six Bowls go down. Some pretty ugly. So we'll start with an ugly one first. Number 6, Oklahoma takes advantage of missing players for number 7, Florida in a 55-20 blowout win in the Cotton Bowl. Kyle Trask throws 3 picks in the loss. Several skilled players for Florida opted out. You could tell that it hurt Kyle Trask. He had nobody to throw it to, including the top tight end prospect, Kyle Pitts. Brendan, I'll start with you. Does this Cotton Bowl help the case when advocating for a playoff expansion? Because right now, there's really no point in playing in the Cotton Bowl if it's not a playoff game.
Yeah, well, I think this is the case like every year when these New Year's Six Bowls, who aren't semifinal games, get played, and you get outcomes like this. Florida, if before losing to LSU in that awful fashion, was the argument to be made to get that 4th spot, no matter what happened when they played Alabama in the SEC Championship. When looking at the SEC Championship, they only lose by a touchdown to Alabama, who's now favored in the college football playoff. But now here they are in the Cotton Bowl. I don't know what the game plan was. I don't know if they tried or not. I'm not going to say whether or not they did. But they get blown out by Oklahoma, who was on the rise the entire season under Spencer Rattler. Yes, it does make the case to have an expansion. Because when the 4-team thing, their argument is only 4 teams are eligible to win the championship. They're at a caliber that other teams aren't. Well, these New Year's Six Bowls obviously make the case that that's not the case. That's not true. If you put Oklahoma in that 4th spot, good chances they could pull off an upset and beat Alabama. Florida obviously has the potential to beat Alabama. I think they may have made the wrong decision by putting Notre Dame in there this year. You need to expand it, and we're going to go through these other bowl games. Obviously, all of them are making the case to expand the college football playoff. It doesn't make sense. You can still have these bowl games and their sponsorships and venues and count as quarterfinal, semifinal games. There's no harm in expanding the playoff because Oklahoma, boy, did they make a statement that it needs to be expanded.
Mm-hmm. Alex, your thoughts on the Cotton Bowl?
Yeah, I can see where Brendan is coming from, and I can agree to some degrees, but also I'm just curious because it doesn't seem like the Cotton Bowl or any of these other bowl games get as much attention as the Sugar Bowl and the Rose Bowl, because even at home, everyone I talk to, everyone's oh, Sugar Bowl, Rose Bowl, Sugar Bowl, Rose Bowl, and it doesn't, I guess, the playoffs should be expanded, and I can totally get on board with that. It doesn't seem like right now it's getting as much attention as it should be getting. So I feel like there should be other ways to try to resolve this and maybe try to get an expansion. But I think just having the game just set in stone, I don't think is really doing much. Like I said, it's almost not even worth playing the game. But I'm not saying that it shouldn't be expanded. I'm just saying that there should be other ways to try to work towards it.
And I get what you're saying. It's kind of the luck of the draw a little bit. I mean, even before the playoffs, I would agree. It seemed like Rose Bowl, Sugar Bowl, and even the Orange Bowl were probably far and away better than the Peach Bowl, Cotton Bowl, and Fiesta Bowl. But, I mean, like 2 years ago, the Cotton Bowl was a college football playoff game, so that made the Cotton Bowl obviously more prestigious that year. So it's kind of the luck of the draw there. But it does suck seeing these New Year's Six bowls that you grew up watching, like the Boise State upset in the bowl game, in the New Year's Six game, and they're not getting the love now, and they have players opting out because they're literally saying, "What are we playing for? I'm going to the NFL. If I get hurt in a bowl game, that's not going to win me a national championship. What's the point?" And that's why I want to see an expansion, because then you get all these bowl games as those expansion games. They can be the playoff games, and that's why I think this definitely does advocate. Jacob, your opinion?
You know, I'm kind of stuck here. I'm kind of going both ways. I definitely see what Brendan's saying, and I'd have to agree with it. I think that Florida wouldn't have guys opting out, obviously, if they're in an expanded playoff. But I think what this shows at the same time is the committee might be scared to put more teams in because they're afraid more blowouts are going to happen. Because, in my opinion, I hate watching the semifinals now because every single semifinal game seems like a blowout to me. So when you see this game, obviously this game would be closer if Florida had all their players available, but you don't know if it's going to be a blowout or not. And I think that's what the committee might be potentially worried about, is if you put more teams in, maybe there's still an overmatch of competition and there's just these blowouts in these semifinal games and nobody wants to watch them. Because I personally couldn't stand watching the Alabama and Notre Dame game because it just was never a game. And even the Ohio State-Clemson game was never truly a game on the scoreboard either. So, I mean, I think that they should expand the playoff. They just need to get the right teams. Florida, to me, would not be in that discussion just because you already have two SEC teams in there, and then, for example, Florida's got 3 losses. So Florida, to me, wouldn't be in that 8 teams. So maybe they're not the best team to really judge if they should expand the playoff or not. But I think it's just that the playoff committee might be worried for more of these blowout games, which I know would be terrible for the playoff.
Here's my thing. Yes, you're going to have your blowouts 1 versus 16, but that doesn't deter them from making March Madness. Every year we see 1 versus 16 blowout, and then that 1 year when 16 pulls it off, it's awesome. And then obviously you see upsets throughout. You see a 3-14 or a 5-12. That's what you'd see with college football if you give them the opportunity. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that it would happen, but if number 10 Iowa State got another chance at number 6 Oklahoma in a 6-10 matchup, I think Matt Campbell could have pulled it off. Or even, I mean, I don't think any 16 seeds would beat Alabama, and I don't think any 15 seed would beat Clemson. But you definitely could have seen upsets, 7-11 or 5-11, or you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
You can't be afraid of upsets. I mean, if these semifinal games are going to be upsets every year, expand it, and you may not be getting upsets. Ohio State could play Florida. That could be a really good game. Clemson could play Texas A&M. That could be a really good game. But you don't know if you don't try.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys. I definitely think they should expand it, but I just think the committee, at least in this year, like, I don't think anybody was going to touch Alabama in a semifinal game. And really, like, Clemson, too, if Clemson would have been the 2, then who would they have played at 7? They would have played Florida at 7. I think Clemson would have blown out Florida. I don't think we would have seen upsets this year. I definitely see what you guys are saying, like, try it out. But I think this year, at least, we wouldn't have seen anything different. I just think that the top 3 teams would have definitely moved on, and then probably the 4-5 matchup would have been something interesting.
I would say Florida Clemson would be a good game. I'd love to see Oklahoma Ohio State as well. I feel like that'd be a fun one, 3-6. And Notre Dame Texas A&M obviously would be fun.
I don't think that they'd pull off the upsets, though, personally. I think they would be good games, potentially, but there's also the potential for a huge blowout there, too.
Well, my thing is like, you never know on any given Saturday, though. Ohio State has not looked good all year. They pulled out the best game, the most consistent game of their season, and they won a playoff game. Nobody had them beating Clemson. That's my point. If you expand to 8, Cincinnati could beat Alabama for all we know, and it's the UMBC of football.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see what you're saying. It's just, to me, this year at least, I don't think that any of those 3 teams were going to get upset. And then the 4-5 would have been interesting. Maybe in the future, yes, it should happen. But this year, I wouldn't see it happening.
Yeah. We'll carry on with the Peach Bowl now. This one, Jacob, is going to hit home on you. Number 9 Georgia uses a 14-0 fourth quarter to take down number 8 Cincinnati 24-21. But Cincinnati looked really good. What is this, Jacob? I'll start with you. What does this showing by Cincinnati do for the Group of 5 schools? Obviously, if there's an expansion, you got to give Group of 5 schools respect. Cincinnati being in an 18 playoff, but does this give them a little more respect with them staying competitive with a top 10 SEC school?
So if UCF upsetting Auburn wasn't something that really got the committee to really consider these Group of 5 schools, I think now that Cincinnati could compete with Georgia, that should definitely show you that you should consider these Group of 5 schools. I mean, come on, the AAC, for crying out loud, is playing better in bowl games than the ACC is. So, I mean, to say that Cincinnati doesn't have the talent that like Ohio State or Notre Dame or Clemson or Alabama has is accurate. But their style of play, I think, could translate into the playoff where they can compete. So I think you definitely need to consider these Group of 5 schools now. Because seriously, the AAC has proven time and time again that they can compete with these Power 5 schools, but yet they don't get any respect still at the same time. So I get it, they lost, but they played a really good game of football except for the fourth quarter. So I think you should definitely give these schools more respect and give them a fair shot at making the playoff, other than just assuming that these Power 5 schools who have all the top 5 recruits in the country, that they get in the playoff just because they are bigger names. I think Cincinnati definitely needs more respect, as well as the other Group of 5 schools, such as schools like Coastal Carolina, BYU. They need all the respect they can get, and Cincinnati really helped their case with this game.
Yeah, I will say this. When the before the American Athletic Conference was a thing, it was the Big East that a lot of these schools were in, and the Big East had a BCS bowl tie-in. One Big East team, the Big East champion, always made a BCS game. So that's my thing too. If before they were the American Conference, they were getting respect, where did it go? Because the American Conference added more teams with more firepower, and Cincinnati's also been a different ball club since the American Conference has become a thing as well. Brendan, your take on this game?
I think the argument can be made that the AAC is a better football conference than the Pac-12.
Yeah.
Like, what happened to the Pac-12? Their football, all of a sudden,
California sinking.
Yeah. Arizona sucks. Arizona State sucks. Washington went down the drain. USC football sucks now. Like,
they're
Oregon
4-1 or 5-1.
Oregon is really the only consistent team that has a winning season and like is maybe every other year making a New Year's Six bowl game. But you look at the football that's coming out of the AAC: Memphis, UCF, Cincinnati, South Florida at times. SMU is really good. I think Tulsa had a good year this year. Like, these are teams.
Houston has some good years as well.
Who?
The Cougars. Houston? They produce some defensive talent in the NFL.
Yeah, well, they had a hard time even getting a game in this year, but
but usually is what I'm saying. I'm backing you up a little bit.
Yeah. Like, these teams, they may not be getting like the best recruits in the country, but they're getting good football players, put together good rosters, and like are competing in games like the Peach Bowl here against SEC teams. Like, the way that Cincinnati, their game plan was to go against Georgia. Now, yes, Georgia did not have a great season like they have in the past 5 years, but it's still Georgia football. Mm-hmm. Like, the way they should have won this game, heartbreak at the end, but I don't know what else they could have done to try and beat this Bulldogs team. Like, the second or first play of the second half, they pull off a 75-yard touchdown run. Like, way to catch an SEC team off guard. Mm-hmm. These Group of 5 conferences, especially the AAC, really needs to start getting consideration, and not just looking at who they're playing and who their recruits are. Like, they're putting together good rosters and are winning football games. That's all that matters.
Yeah. Alex, your thoughts on the Bearcats of Cincinnati?
No, I agree with the guys. I think they did put up a really good game. I mean, even though they lost, I think they still pulled through pretty much until the fourth quarter. But as far as all the schools go, I agree. I mean, I think they do need more consideration. I mean, they're not obviously the big name schools, but they're still putting together decent rosters, and they're showing that they can put up good games. So I guess they should have consideration. There's no reason, I guess, not to, you know?
Yeah, and I will say this, Fickle kind of blew this one there in the end. He needed 3 yards. Why didn't you run the ball, man? Georgia was out of timeouts. You can at least get it down to, 30 seconds. And that's tough to take it down the field in 30 seconds with no timeouts. But this did prove a lot. Jacob, you said UCF beat Auburn. Auburn usually a top 25 recruiting school. UCF not so much. Yes, that was awesome. But we're talking Georgia, who for about 5 years now has been a top 5 recruiting class every year in and year out. And Cincinnati took them down to the final second of a 4-quarter football game. And that's why I think this is a little more impressive. Yes, they didn't win like UCF did, but Georgia is pulling in those guys we were talking about. They're up there in the blue bloods of recruiting when it comes to teams. You can put them up there with Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oregon. Those are the teams that you're always seeing in the top 5. Georgia might have been 6 this year, I think. Still, a top 10 recruiting class. Cincinnati's not even touching the top 25. I think this is huge for the group of 5 schools. I like your touch on the playing style. The playing style is what's going to get them wins. It's all about the coaching, and Fickle coached a great season this year and a great bowl game. Again, just that one mistake there at the end. You can't say that's what cost them because they had a really bad fourth quarter overall, but that play definitely led to the demise of Cincinnati's undefeated season. But I still do think they deserve a lot of respect for taking a top 5 recruiting Georgia class who battles teams like Alabama, LSU, and these SEC schools week in and week out to the final second. So they earned a lot of respect of mine, and I always thought the American Athletic Conference, I agree with Brendan, could be argued that it's better than the Pac-12. And this year especially, I mean, you put Cincinnati and Oregon on the same football field, I think Cincinnati wins. And Oregon won the Pac-12. So
100%. Yep.
I mean, we saw Oregon in the Fiesta Bowl against Iowa State. They didn't look that impressive. I mean, Iowa State also looked very impressive, so that could have been why. But I think Cincinnati beats Oregon. So we'll move on now to the Orange Bowl. Number 5, Texas A&M, who believes they should have been in over Notre Dame. They use a strong fourth quarter to take down number 13, North Carolina, 41-27. They outscored North Carolina 24-7 in the fourth quarter. So what I'm going to ask you guys is, did this prove that Texas A&M should have been in the playoffs? I'm going to start off on this one just because I saw a lot of tweets about the Notre Dame Texas A&M situation, and I saw a lot of good comments on this one that makes you think, yeah, Texas A&M beat North Carolina by 14. You can argue they should have been in, but then you realize Notre Dame beat North Carolina by 14 as well, and it didn't take till the final 2 minutes of the game, and North Carolina also was missing 7 starters, including their 2 running backs that ran for 500 yards against Miami, and their top receiver on the season. So they literally only had Sam Howell on offense, it felt like. So knowing that, Brendan, I'll start with you. Did this prove Texas A&M should have been in, or was this just a 14-point win against a beaten-up team that didn't have any of their players?
I mean, they were barely beating them at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina was in this game. If they didn't have a bad second half, it's pretty much of a stretch here, but they could have beat Texas A&M. Wasn't that impressive of a win, I don't think, by the Aggies. If you can barely beat North Carolina, how are you going to beat Alabama?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, that's the big question this year. What about Florida? What about Oklahoma? What about Iowa State? Are you guys going to beat Alabama?
That big 3 and soon to be big 4 is just dominant. Jalen Waddle is reportedly coming back, so watch out for that.
They had a okay season. Obviously a stacked roster, very talented roster, and I love their head coach. But I don't know. I think the same thing was going to happen to you as it did.
It already did, actually. A lot of people forget.
Yeah, I know.
52-24.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, Jimbo Fisher pulled a hamstring running away from the Gatorade bath. So
don't get me wrong. I love Jimbo Fisher.
He'll be rested up.
He's had historic career, decorated career at Florida State, now at Texas A&M. He wins wherever he goes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's still, the gap is still there between you and Alabama.
Yeah. Jacob, did Texas A&M prove anything with this one?
No, they didn't really prove anything for me. I thought that they could have potentially made the playoff, But I also thought that their 5 seed was definitely what they deserved. So, I mean, North Carolina was so up and down all year.
Mm-hmm.
There's some weeks where they're out there going like 55 to 21, something like that, and then they're going and they're laying an egg against the team. So, I mean, I think if Texas A&M would have come out and absolutely destroyed them, then yeah, they showed that they'd be in the playoff. But what I didn't like was Texas A&M was talking all of this smack, like, oh, we deserve the playoff, and then you come in and you're losing heading into the fourth quarter to North Carolina. So that just shows me that they're exactly a team that I thought that, yes, they could have made the playoff, and you can argue still that they should have been in over Notre Dame. But personally, I still wouldn't have put them in over Notre Dame, especially after a performance like this. Because like how you said, it didn't take Notre Dame all that long. I know the score was still almost the exact same. They were both 14-point wins. But Notre Dame took care of North Carolina before the final 2 minutes of the game. So Texas A&M proved absolutely nothing to me by winning this game in the way that they did.
Arguably, you could say Notre Dame handled business in the first half. I think it was a very defensive second half. And Notre Dame went on to win 31-17. Not much happening in the second half, but they really had control of that whole game, and I think that's the difference in it. You see Notre Dame having control against a North Carolina team that had their top 2 running backs and their top receiver, where Texas A&M struggled with a team that has, yes, a very good quarterback, but who's his skill players? And this is the same situation with Florida, and we saw Florida get exposed because they had no skill players. Sam Howell took it into his own hands and showed that he could be a decent quarterback, maybe even at the next level. But he had nobody with him and still kept this game competitive. Alex, your take on the Orange Bowl?
Yeah, Notre Dame did the exact same thing with Carolina, and they did it throughout the entire game instead of the last quarter. So this didn't really prove much for me for Texas A&M. I mean, it sucks because, again, like, the playoffs are only those 4 teams. But I think as far as right now how the playoffs are, I think those 4 teams are the ones that deserved it. I don't think Texas A&M should have been in over Notre Dame. I think the way it worked out, I think it was meant to be. And then maybe if the playoffs were to expand, then maybe a different story. I still think they'd probably be in the 5th spot, but I don't know. I don't think they should have been in over Notre Dame.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. If there was an expansion, I think a Notre Dame Texas A&M game would have been really fun to watch. I think Notre Dame's slightly better, but I think it would have been a ball game. I think Kellen Mond versus Ian Book would have been fun to watch. I think Notre Dame would have had the edge just because their defense is a little better than Texas A&M's, but I think it would have been a really good game, which is why, and this is another proof of advocating for the expansion, a 4-5 matchup that kind of could be a play-in game to see who plays Alabama, because Alabama's most likely beating the 8th seed. So kind of like, who really deserves to be in? 4-5, prove it. Match up, and then you can play in the semis against Alabama. And that's my thing. But nonetheless, Texas A&M not proving much to me, other than the fact that when it comes down to it, yes, they can pull off the close ones. But if they're down big, it seems like they get out of it. And then also the defense really came up big with a turnover that led to a touchdown, and that really flipped the switch. It looked like North Carolina had the potential to drag down the field and take the lead if that doesn't happen. So it's a whole different ballgame if they don't get that one flip momentum. So we'll move on to the Fiesta Bowl now. Number 10, Iowa State. They're led by Breece Hall and Brock Purdy like they have been all season long as they rout number 25 Oregon 34-17. This is Iowa State's first Near 6 victory in program history. They've won 5 bowl games. I think 3 of them are the Independence Bowl. One was the Insight.com Bowl. And now they are Fiesta Bowl champions as Iowa State is on the map. And it's all thanks to a Mount Union man himself, Matt Campbell. Brendan, I'll start with you. Has Matt Campbell put the Cyclones on the map of championship contention?
Yeah, but he's got one more hurdle to go. You got to beat Oklahoma.
Yep.
They almost did this year, close game, but that's the measuring stick of Big 12 and trying to get into the playoff as it is right now. You've got to beat Oklahoma, and they're still just a little bit behind the Sooners. Yes, Matt Campbell has put together a phenomenal program. The way he's constructed their roster, recruiting style, and play style at Iowa State is remarkable. What is really interesting to see now is what does their non-conference schedule look like in the future? And, you got to look at that matchup with Oklahoma, playing them in the Big 12 championship game year in and year out and trying to beat them. Mm-hmm. If you can beat Oklahoma and start putting together non-conference wins, then you're, seriously in the consideration for the playoff and national championship. It's baby steps here with Iowa State, but they're getting close. Yeah, I was really impressed with them this whole year.
Yeah, me too. The only thing that sucks for Iowa State, it seems like they have to play Oklahoma twice every year. And it's that same scenario, Notre Dame versus Clemson. But Notre Dame and Clemson were one-loss teams. They're both very good teams. That's why they got in. If you split with Oklahoma, you almost need Oklahoma to be undefeated, just win out as well for you to get that nod. And that's where Iowa State's getting hurt. It seems like Iowa State, if you ever want to get over that hump, you've got to sweep Oklahoma. And I'm sure Matt Campbell realizes that because the Big 12 is not getting as much respect as the SEC, ACC, or Big 10. So especially when every team has 2 or more losses, it's hard to get that respect. But I agree, Oklahoma's that hurdle he has to get over, but he is getting there. Alex, your thought on Matt Campbell and the Cyclones?
It's cool that this kind of hits close to home for us, but yeah, I think that over time, Matt Campbell has put together an excellent program for the Cyclones. I kind of agree. If they can beat Oklahoma, I think that would be truly incredible. But I think as far as working their way up, I think that he's doing an incredible job. I mean, I think he's put a lot of effort into it, and I think it's definitely showing. I think this is not the end-all be-all. I think it's just progress, and it's a start. But, I think definitely it can make things possible for the future.
Yeah, and after the game, Matt Campbell said this is the best Iowa State team to ever take the field in program history, and that's the legacy they're leaving behind, and it is Fiesta Bowl champions. Jacob, your thoughts on the Mount Union boy and his Iowa State Cyclones?
So it's literally like Brendan read the notes right off my paper because he said just about everything that I was going to talk about. But yeah, I think that Iowa State has an extremely solid foundation for a great football program. However, I just don't see them overcoming Oklahoma anytime soon. As long as Lincoln Riley's there, Spencer Rattler, I'm anticipating a big season for him next year because he kind of started off slow, then he got better and better as time went on. So I think Oklahoma next year is going to win the Big 12. Iowa State's probably going to be second there. And then the year after that, I think the same thing could possibly happen. So I think Iowa State needs that one little thing, I'm not quite sure what it is, to make them get over Oklahoma. Once they get over Oklahoma, it should be fine. That is unless another Big 12 team comes up, because West Virginia is good every once in a while. Texas might come back. I mean, you never know. I just think Iowa State's in this really bad situation where they have a really good football program, but they just can't get over Oklahoma.
Look who Texas just hired.
Yeah,
exactly.
Steve Sarkisian.
We're going to get into that.
They're going to compete now. Yep.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. That's big. But no, I agree. I think Oklahoma's the thing keeping them. And one of my points I forgot to talk about in Oklahoma is I think they're a team that we need to watch out for the years coming. They are a very young team. And if they showed anything in that Florida game, yes, Florida sat some players, but to put up 55 on a SEC school, even some of their reserves, they're going to be some really good talent there. I think Oklahoma's a team to watch out for over the next few years. A true freshman quarterback working his way up the ranks. And we'll see what they do there, as we know Oklahoma has the power of producing good quarterbacks. So we'll move on now to the Rose Bowl. Not in California this year, in Texas due to COVID-19. Number 1, Alabama uses their powerful Big 3, soon to be Big 4 if Jalen Waddle comes in and doesn't skip a beat, as they handle number 4 Notre Dame 31-14. Devontae Smith catches 3 touchdown passes from Jones on his way to 7 receptions and 130 yards. Did not look like the secondary had any answer for Devontae Smith, but we all kind of expected this. We all expected an Alabama win by multiple scores. Some were saying 56-13, like Brennan, I believe, said something like that, 54-14. So some of us were expecting a 40-point win. Some of us were expecting, I think Jacob and I both called 17-point games. So did Notre Dame prove anything by covering the line? Alabama favored by 20.5, 21.5. It changed throughout the week. So Notre Dame did cover the line. If you pick Notre Dame in betting, due to the garbage time touchdown, they covered. But Jacob, did Notre Dame prove anything by at least covering the line against this Bama football team?
They proved they can't compete in the playoff, that's for sure. I mean, I'm not saying that their talent isn't worthy of the playoff because I would put Notre Dame in the playoffs still, even after this performance. I'm just saying Brian Kelly's preparation for big games. I just really got to question it now. Because my biggest issue with him was after the game when he was trying to defend himself, he said something like, oh, well, they have dynamic playmakers. How are we supposed to stop that? Well, isn't that your job to game plan for that? I mean, I'm not saying you're going to stop it fully, but for real, I mean, Devontae Smith is out there winning the Heisman, and you're over here going, well, yeah, I mean, he is a dynamic playmaker. How am I supposed to stop that? I mean, that's your job. You're supposed to game plan to try to stop him a little bit. So I'm not saying it's the talent by any means. Notre Dame has the talent to get back into the playoff over and over and over again. But Brian Kelly, I mean, he just got to prepare better for these games. That's the only thing that was proven to me here, because I just felt bad for those Notre Dame guys. I felt they never had a shot going into this game because Brian Kelly just wasn't going to prepare them right.
Yeah. Brendan, did Notre Dame prove anything to you? Or are you on the same boat? Because I'm on the same boat as Jacob.
It is interesting, like, why Brian Kelly, like, he is a beloved coach. You know, even Colin Cowherd says, like, I love Brian Kelly. Like, he has won everywhere he's gone, Cincinnati even. But, like, when it gets to these big games, how can you not, like, put together a good game plan?
Win one of them. Win one big game. One.
Right.
How many have you been in?
I would also like to point this out. There is still a huge gap between Alabama and Clemson, and I would maybe put Ohio State in there. Because who is also winless in the college football playoff? I'm asking any of you guys.
Oklahoma.
Okay, fine. Well, I know you know your stuff.
Oh, I thought you really wanted us to answer. I didn't know you were trying to stump us.
Oklahoma is also winless in the college football playoff.
0-4, actually.
They're 0-4, and they've lost to Clemson, Alabama, and LSU and Ohio State. There's still this gap between those teams and Notre Dame. Notre Dame, give them credit, they didn't get blown out, and they lost by fewer points than Clemson did to Ohio State. So it was there is no impressive loss, but you know when you know that you're going to go in and lose this game, they did make it pretty. So give them that.
Pretty loss. Alex, your thoughts on Notre Dame? Did they impress you by covering the line?
I mean, I guess not necessarily. I think everyone kind of assumed that this would happen. I agree. I think even if the other team has a favor in points, like, why wouldn't you set up a good plan to at least try? You know, I feel like when it comes to these big games, like, you're not setting up a good plan. Like, it's almost like expecting the worst. So why wouldn't you, I guess, like, make a game plan to at least try to beat a team that you might not have the point favor for, but you'd still have a shot if you had a plan. I guess I don't understand why, like, just because you don't have the point favor, and when it comes to these big games, that you just kind of, like, let it lie, like, oh, well, you know.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to say this. I was impressed by the Notre Dame defense. And you're probably like, whoa, they gave up 31 points and lost by 17 in the ball game. I was impressed by Notre Dame's defense because of this. Alabama has put up 40 to 50 points on almost every opponent they've played this season. So I think a 31-point defensive effort has you in most games with Alabama. I was very disappointed in the game plan by Brian Kelly offensively and offense coordinator Tommy Rees's play calling. Ian Book never got into this game, and the offense could not move the football, and when they did, Ian Book killed them with a turnover. If the offensive game plan was better, I think the defensive game plan wasn't terrible. It's tough to hold Devontae Smith. I'm not going to lie. Yes, you game plan for that. But I still think 7 receptions for 130 yards is one of his quietest games. Then you add the 3 touchdowns. But when you're just talking about receptions and yards, it's one of his quietest games. He's usually a 14 reception, 250-yard kind of guy. I think if you come better prepared offensively, this is a ball game. And you also got to think late in the second quarter, you miss that field goal. You go into halftime 21-10, you get the ball first, you take it on the field and don't throw that pick. It's 21-17. It's a different ball game. And that's what I'm saying. Offensively, the game plan was just not there, and that's what lost them this game. I was thoroughly impressed by Notre Dame. I thought they had no chance going into this game, so when they lost by 17 and they played better than expected, and only held a Bama team to 31 that has 4 of the best offensive players to ever play college football. I was thoroughly impressed, but I agree exactly with what Brennan's saying. 1, 2, and 3 are up here, and 4 is down here and on. And it's another thing with Brian Kelly, too. I agree. I don't think he comes prepared for the big games. I think he thinks, and it kind of looks like it, I think he's safe. He thinks he's safe by just taking Notre Dame to these 10-win seasons over and over and getting them into the playoff, into the bowl games. But I don't know how you're safe with that because you never win the big games. You're literally talked about
with his play calling.
You're talked about on social media as the biggest choke artist in college football, and you're okay with that. We have nothing to prove. I don't like that at all. I don't like that mentality. I do think Brian Kelly's the best coach Notre Dame has had since Lou Holtz retired in 1996. But is Brian Kelly going to be the coach that takes him over the hump? I'm still unsure. So we'll see.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, he prepares so well for all these other games, which is why I kind of don't like ripping on him necessarily. But it's the big games. He just can't do it. And then I can't stand when he tries to defend himself for it because he's done it time and time again.
Yeah.
You can't defend yourself when you just keep laying eggs in all these big situations.
Yeah. So if you're a Notre Dame fan, obviously you'll take Brian Kelly 100 over 100 times if you're comparing him to a guy like Charlie Weiss or Ty Willingham or Bob Davies. But in the end, you want a guy like Urban Meyer or a Ryan Day or a Dabo Swinney that's gonna finish the day. Yeah, it's gonna finish the deal, seal the deal, and win one for you. Or Nick Saban, but Nick Saban's gonna die in Alabama. So, move on to the other playoff game. This was the Sugar Bowl. Ohio State, number 3 Buckeyes. They show out on the big stage and dismantle number 2 Clemson, 49-28. Justin Fields goes 22 of 28 for 385 yards and 6 touchdowns in the win. This is a game he really needed. Fields' draft stock, it seems like, has kind of been falling with a couple bad performances against Indiana and Northwestern. But the Buckeyes wanted revenge, and Justin Fields knew his draft stock needed some help. And they both come out and ball out against the Tigers of Clemson as the number 11 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes get the win. Brendan, I'll start with you. Can Ohio State repeat this effort, or was this just fueled by the pursuit of revenge?
Well, it was definitely fueled by trying to get revenge on Clemson, and making a statement that Dabo Swinney is the most arrogant coach in college football by putting them 11th in his top 25. But man, was I impressed with Justin Fields taking that big hit from Skalski, staying in the game and throwing 6 touchdowns. You've got to go back to that game plan against Alabama. They have a very aggressive offensive game plan, and Fields and Ryan Day are like that. They're connected mentally. They know, going into a possession, how can we tear apart this defense? And they did that against Clemson, who was one of the best defenses in all of football. Their defensive coordinator, slipping my tongue.
Venables?
Venables, yep. As much as I hate the guy, he's got to give him credit. He's, probably the best defensive coordinator in the country. And they tore apart that defense. Now, can they do that against Alabama is the big question. I won't talk about that, but I was very impressed with Fields and Clemson showing that they were overrated this year.
Yeah, you talked about the Skalski hit and Fields taking it, eating it, and spitting it out for 6 touchdowns. But Skalski, some argue that was the turning point for Clemson. Skalski is the quarterback of that defense. He missed the Notre Dame game, and Notre Dame scored 47 on Clemson the first time they played. Clemson looked lost after Skalski exited the game, and I think what made it even better for Fields is that he took advantage of that. You love to see it. A guy, you kick them in their weakness, and that's exactly what the Buckeyes offense did. And I'm not saying Skalski is the reason Clemson lost this game. I'm just saying Ohio State did a very good job at taking advantage of an opportunity.
Yeah. Well, how about back-to-back years? Same game, semifinal.
Same stadium.
Shifts with the targeting call.
Yep. So, Trevor Lawrence announced that he's going to the NFL draft, if you guys had any doubts. Alex, your thoughts on the Ohio State-Clemson game?
honestly, just excellent game. I think they were definitely fueled by a little bit of revenge, but at the same time, I think they just genuinely put together an excellent game. And now against Alabama, I could see them putting up a similar game by chance. I'm not sure. I think it would be really fun to see, but I think especially after Justin Fields took, and I can't. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
You're good.
I think especially after Justin Fields took that hit, I think Clemson looked really lost. I think he let his team down after that happened and exited the game. So I think after what happened to Justin Fields, that just fueled Ohio State even more. And I think ultimately it was a great game. So, yeah, who's 11th now? But
Clemson is 12th. Jacob.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on this game? Was it fueled by revenge, or can the Buckeyes repeat this effort?
So before I even start, I want to apologize to every single Buckeye fan and every single Justin Fields supporter because I've been ripping on the Buckeyes all year long. And then they come out.
You're not the only one, buddy.
This performance out there. Exactly, Will. I know you're feeling it too. I was like,
it's
a great game.
Not even just
it's a great game, but oh man,
not even just us sitting in this room. A lot of the experts were even counting them out. They were a team that hadn't looked that impressive this season, but they came out. They made that hype video. It got me hyped. I'm not even an Ohio State fan. Now it's like, I'm hopping on.
True. They make hype videos like I've never seen before. They can get me running through a brick wall.
I was getting goosebumps. My hairs were standing up. My whole, you see all this hair on my head. It was all sticking straight up. No. But no, Jacob, you were saying.
Yeah. I don't think that they're gonna necessarily have an exact game like this because this is a game for the ages. I don't know if you can even pull something off like this again, but they can pull something really similar off like this again. It's all going to depend on me about how Justin Fields plays because that's what I think it was with this game too. Justin Fields came out and played great, and the whole team played great. They just ride off his momentum, and I really am having serious doubts that he's healthy, and I think Alabama's going to take advantage of that. I don't see how he can be healthy because that was one of the worst hits I've seen a quarterback take, honestly. Just for him to get back up and have the performance he had was just absolute craziness to me. So I think Alabama's going to take advantage of that. I still think Justin Fields is actually going to perform good now. So there you go, Justin Fields. I'm finally supporting you.
Now he's going to lay an egg. Watch. Way to go, Jacob.
Way to go. Yeah, but honestly, I think also what Ohio State needs to do better is really defend the pass better because I know Trevor Lawrence had a really pedestrian game. He didn't necessarily do anything that made Clemson any better, but he still threw for 400 yards. And you can't let Mac Jones do that in the championship game. So they need to get better on the pass defense side, and hopefully Justin Fields is healthy enough. They can get a similar performance like this, but I don't think it's going to be an exact replica of the game we saw.
Yeah, that's a key point there. 400 yards and 3 touchdowns for Lawrence. In a game where it seemed like he did nothing, he still had a great game. He didn't turn the ball over either. They shut down Etienne, and that's what Notre Dame did when they beat Clemson. If you shut down the run game and you force their whole game plan to be through the pass, they kind of panic a little bit. And the thing with Ohio State now is you cannot let Mac Jones throw for 400 yards because you're not holding Najee Harris back. That's the thing about Alabama. Their offensive line is so good that's why their pass game and run game are so dominant, because you add that offensive line to these 5-star recruits at running back, and then you have 3 receivers in Smith, Waddle, and Mechie that are running around the field making your secondary look crazy. That's the thing. Ohio State, your offense, just take what you did last week, but your defense is where you really got a game plan. And I think Ryan Day knows that. He's a great coach. I'd even argue that he's looked better as a coach than Urban Meyer under the helm of the Buckeyes. And I know he's sitting hard this whole week, game planning for that defense to go up against that Big Four in Alabama. Speaking of Alabama, their offensive coordinator, this will be his last game with the Crimson Tide as Texas replacing Tom Herman with Steve Sarkisian from Alabama. Obviously, Sarkisian having a great year as a coordinator offensively when you're leading one of the deadliest offenses to ever play the sport. But will this translate as a head coach? We saw him before in USC. He got fired quickly, very quickly. Jacob, your thoughts on this decision by the Longhorns? Is it a good hire, or are you scared to see Sarkisian in the head coaching role again?
Yeah, so first off, Tom Herman was not the answer.
No.
So I don't fault Texas for doing that. A lot of people were coming out and saying they shouldn't have fired Herman, especially after what they were saying about him, like they wanted to keep him. But he was never the answer. I mean, I don't know if you guys realize this. I just realized this, actually, that Texas hasn't really won a national championship in about 15 years now, ever since Mac Brown was there. They haven't even been to a national championship
Vince Young,
game
baby.
in about 12 years. Yep. Yeah,
Colt
Vince
McCoy
Young,
was the last
Colt
appearance.
McCoy. Yep, ever since then. They just haven't really been good. So Tom Herman was definitely not the answer. But Sark, I mean, I just have an issue only on the fact that he once coached a high-profile program in USC, and he did fail there. Even before the whole alcohol scandal started to happen with Sark at USC, USC just wasn't playing all that great. And I think Texas is a lot like USC in the sense that everybody still thinks, oh, we're Texas, we're going to go out and we're going to win. And then they lay an egg, just like USC's done in the past. So I don't know necessarily if he's going to help them out that much. I think they're going to be better because he is a better coach, in my opinion, than Tom Herman is. But I just have my doubts just because of the fact that he once had the same situation at USC and he couldn't get the job done. So hopefully he learned from his mistakes. But as of right now, I don't know necessarily if it's the best hire for Texas.
Yeah, and before we move on, I do want to say Tom Herman had a good 5 years with Texas. He shouldn't catch any slander. I still he thinks he deserves to be a head coach in Division I football. Maybe go back to a lower school. He was at Houston before. Maybe go back to an American Athletic Conference. He won 32 out of his 50 games in Texas, and he was 5-0 in bowl games. So definitely a great few years there in Texas. Brendan, your thoughts?
I love Sarkisian as a play caller. He's the one calling the plays for Alabama, not Nick Saban. When I watched him on the sidelines there against Notre Dame, in a crouch.
Did he ever leave that crouch, is my question. Every time they showed him on the TV.
Yeah. This is why I was so impressed with him. Like, he just looks at his chart. Okay, let's go this play. Boom. 50 yards. This play, all right, touchdown. Like, he makes it so easy. It's ho-hum for him and the offense that he runs. Mm-hmm. That's why I have faith in him that he can get this Texas program back on top. It's just the things behind the scenes and not on game days that I'm questioning whether or not he can do right. You are in Texas. Recruiting here is huge for Texas. You're in Texas, for God's sakes. You got the best high school football players right in your backyard in the country. Go get them, put together a good roster, and have them run your offense to perfection like he does at Alabama. And you can get back in the playoff. Well, not back in the playoff. They never made the playoff. But you can get into the playoff. It's just those things that I'm worried about. Can he do right? Recruiting is the big question mark here for Texas because I have absolute faith in his offense and running a good, game. But it's the little questions that surround Sarkisian.
Yeah. I will say this: if his head coaching is anything as good as he can crouch, he'll be successful. I crouched for 3 minutes, and I think I need a double knee surgery. But Alex, your thoughts on this hire?
I think this is going to be incredible for Texas. I mean, I think Steve Sarkisian, I think he's done, great things wherever he's gone. And, I knew it's been a while since Texas has won a championship, but like Jacob said, I didn't realize it was 15 years. So, I think this could be an excellent comeback for Texas. So, I'm really excited for them.
Yeah, I think Ken as well. Like Brendan said, if he can coach offense, he just needs to get the recruits now. And I 100% agree. It's like Jacob said earlier, you took it off my notes. You have a lot of the top recruits in your backyard there in Texas. Texas is the holy grail of high school football. And if Sarkisian can recruit those guys alone and get some other guys obviously out of state, you're going to be successful. And it's going to be interesting to see how he does recruiting. We know how easy it is for Nick Saban. Nick Saban just walks in, hey, you're coming to play for Bama, and the deal's done. Sarkisian, he might need a little more work. He doesn't have that resume that Saban has that the players love so much. So we'll see what he can do with Texas. But we'll go back to Alabama as Sarkisian's wide receiver, Devontae Smith, takes home the 2020 Heisman Trophy, becoming the first wide receiver to do it since 1991. he goes into the championship game with 105 receptions, which is first in FBS, 1,641 yards, which is also first, and 20 touchdowns. Alex, I'll start with you. Was he your pick for the award?
Honestly, for me. It was between him and Trevor Lawrence. So I'm really happy for him because I know it's typically a quarterback award. So for a wide receiver to get it, I think it's out of the ordinary. Obviously it hasn't been done since 1991, but I think it's incredible for him. I think he does deserve it. So very good for him. Very good.
Yeah, and everyone's showing that picture of him standing on the sideline where he's like super lanky and everything. And they're like, "This is your Heisman Trophy winner." And somebody said, "This is the guy they tell you not to worry about, and you don't worry about him because you look at him." But then he goes on and wins the Heisman. Brendan, your thoughts on Devontae Smith? Was he your pick?
Yeah, he was. I wasn't really in favor of any of the other guys, not because they're quarterbacks, but because you look at Lawrence. He's had letdown games in big games, like at LSU, like at Ohio State. Kyle Trask, got blown out by Oklahoma, throws 3 interceptions in the first half, not good. And then Mac Jones, he makes Harris makes Mac Jones look good. So out of all those, Devontae Harris, he's going to be a stud in the NFL, Pro Bowler. He's going to, turn around an offense in the NFL like no other receiver has done, I don't think. So he's my favorite. Hope he wins the Super Bowl on Sundays because, man, he's quietly dangerous, which is why I like him.
Yeah. Did have a drop in the Notre Dame game, and you thought the world ended. That's all they talked about on TV was that one drop for like 10 minutes. But no, definitely a deserving guy when you can catch 100-plus balls, especially in a season like this where there's so much uncertainty, and also score 20 touchdowns through the air. That doesn't include his punt return touchdown he had, so technically 21 total touchdowns. You got to give it to him. Yes, Mac Jones also had a great year distributing the ball to him, but it seemed time and time again Devontae Harris was the guy that made the big plays in the big moments for that Bama offense. So we'll continue to talk about Alabama. Alabama is the team to talk about right now, as this is our final topic here for college football. Number 1, Alabama. Number 3, Ohio State. They are number 3, right? They moved up 8 spots, right? After that one against Clemson. They will battle it out in Miami on Monday for the national championship. Alabama is favored by 8 points. They opened up as 7-point favorites, I believe. It's been extended to 8 points. And FPI is giving Alabama a 63% chance to win it. Brendan, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this game? Who wins and what's the score? You muted yourself. There you go.
I think it's a lot closer than a lot of people are saying. I think a lot closer than what Vegas is saying. If Justin Fields can prove that he's healthy and put together an offense, I don't want to say he has to throw 6 touchdowns, but it almost is like he's going to have to. This could turn into a shootout. We thought Clemson, Ohio State was going to be a shootout. This might be because Ohio State defense, they worry me against an unstoppable offense like Alabama. Notre Dame had a good game plan going in, but even still, look at Najee Harris. He can hurdle people like no one else can. Mac Jones can throw the ball 50, 60 yards, 2 plays that are in the end zone. So that side worries me for Ohio State. But I think Alabama ends up winning this game close, 50-42, something like that.
Okay. Jacob.
Yeah, so I agree with Brendan. I think that Justin Fields, he's going to be a little messed up, but I think he's still going to play a good game. I think he's going to lead Ohio State's offense to a really good game as well. But Alabama and their offensive firepower, I don't think that Ohio State's defense is really going to stop them, especially through the air. I have this too. It's a really close game for me. It's also a shootout. And I don't know if you guys remember, Devontae Smith started his career catching the game-winning touchdown from Tua Tagovailoa in the national championship game against Georgia. So I think he's going to have a similar situation there. I could see him scoring a touchdown late in the game to give Alabama the win. And I think that Alabama is going to win this game in a shootout, 41-35, mainly because of Mac Jones, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Waddle through the air. Najee Harris still probably have a pretty good game, but I think Ohio State's run defense is going to stop him a little bit. But that passing offense for Alabama is going to prove to be too much, and it's a 41-35 win for the Tide.
Alex, your pick.
So I know Alabama has the 8-point favor, but they also said about Clemson and Ohio State, and look what happened. It was a shootout it was a landslide that no one expected. So I don't know. Something tells me that Ohio. I mean, if he's healthy and he's capable of playing, all in all, Ohio State proved last week that they could play a ball game against Clemson. So I'm not giving up hope. I think if Justin Fields can pull through, I think Ohio State has the fire, they have the hunger, and I think they have the capability to possibly beat Alabama. I think, like the guy said, it's going to be extremely close. I'm guessing maybe between 5 points, but I don't know. I think it's possible for Ohio State. I'm going to keep my hopes up for them.
Okay. This is how I look at it. I think Ohio State and Alabama's defenses are very similar in the sense that they give up a lot of points. Their front sevens are decent. Then when it comes to the secondary, you basically got one player. In Alabama, you got Patrick Surtain. Ohio State, you got Shaun Wade. But when it comes to offense, I think that's where there's a difference. I think Ohio State has a good offensive line. White Davis is a great guard. But I think Alabama, left to right, has the best line in football. Yes, they're missing their starting center, but even their backup has proved that he's a really good offensive lineman. And then I think it's the skill players that are going to end up edging this one out. Trey Sermon, very good. Najee Harris, they're probably equal. I think Najee Harris maybe has the edge a little bit. But then you go to the receiving core. Olave and Wilson, great, don't get me wrong. But Smith, Waddle, and Mechie are three of the best in college football. And, I mean, Smith is the best player in college football, as he wins the AP Player of the Year and the Heisman. And I think Mac Jones has been more consistent. It depends on what Fields we get. If we get the Fields from last week, it's going to be a great game. If we get the Fields from Northwestern, it's going to be a blowout. If Fields does not show up, it's going to be a blowout. But I'm not calling a blowout. I say 45-35 Alabama. They win a 10-point game. They score late. They have a 38-35 advantage, and Devontae Smith gets a score late to seal the deal rather than win the game, like you said, Jacob. So I'm going 45-35 Bama in what is kind of a shootout for the most part there until the end when Bama pulls away. And that is my prediction. So with that being said, Ohio State's probably going to win since we all picked Bama. But I don't know. It's going to be a fun one, I think. And again, I hope Fields shows up because I don't want to see a blowout. I want to see a good game. And I think everybody in this country wants to see a good game, especially everybody in Ohio. But that will take us now to the NFL where everything is decided. The playoffs are set. So I'm going to take us through some of the Week 17 games that clinched. The Cleveland Browns take down the Pittsburgh Steelers 24-22 as the Browns clinch their first postseason berth in 18 years. The Rams defeat the Cardinals 18-7. They clinch postseason berth while the Cardinals are left out of the field. The Bills defeat the Dolphins 56-26. Bills hold on the 2 seed. Dolphins fall out of the AFC playoff field. Ravens defeat the Bengals 38-3 and they clinch their berth to the postseason. Packers take down the Bears 35-16. Packers will have a first-round bye. Bears hold on, though, to that 7th seed because of the Cardinals' loss. Colts take down the Jags 28-14, and they clinch a postseason berth after the Dolphins' loss. The Titans take down the Texans 41-38, win the AFC South. And the football team of Washington takes down the Eagles 20-14, and they win the NFC East with that victory. So before we get into the playoff field and our picks and everything, let's talk about some news. Eagles are taking a lot of heat right now after benching Jalen Hurts when they were only down 3 points in the third quarter against the Washington football team in this past weekend. It kind of looked like they were throwing the game, putting Nate Sudfeld in. This would cause the Giants to miss the playoffs. A lot of players from the Giants spoke out. Joe Judge even spoke out. Now he's taking some heat for shooting shots at Doug Peterson. But Jacob, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this situation?
So, first off, the Giants should not be complaining about not making the playoffs. I mean, you won 6 games, so I don't want to hear that blowing this the way that Doug Peterson did is terrible for them. I mean, you won 6 games. You didn't deserve to be in the playoffs. But that doesn't mean that what Doug Peterson did was not totally wrong. And I'm not talking just football. I'm talking about professional sports in general. Like, this is a legit problem now. I just have a problem with the fact that he literally went out there and blatantly tried not to win. Because you have these pro athletes, especially in a season like this, they're going out there, they're sacrificing their bodies, they're sacrificing their time with their family and friends. They're literally listening to whatever you tell them to do, and you're putting them in a situation where you're setting them up to lose on purpose. And the fact that he came out and said, well, I want Nate Sudfeld to get reps, we want to take a look at him. You've had a look at him for 4 years now. He's your third-string quarterback for a reason. He's just not that good. I mean, if I'm a Philadelphia Eagles player, I don't even know how I can trust Doug Peterson ever again after this. Because really, I mean, they're in the game for the whole way. They're only down 3 points, and you take out your leader in Jalen Hurts. I mean, it's just totally wrong. And it's just a growing trend now in every sport. Like, we're seeing it a lot in basketball. Baseball, not as much, but football, we shouldn't see it in football in the middle of a football game. You shouldn't purposely try to lose. It's just wrong. It's just against the whole entire integrity of all sports. And I just have a huge problem with Doug Peterson doing it, but I also have a huge problem with the Giants complaining that it kept them out of the playoffs. Just have your playoff fate in your own hands, and then maybe don't complain about the Eagles blowing your chances for you.
Yeah, I agree with that. A 6-10 team. I'm kind of glad in the sense that Washington got to make it, because at least 7-9, you're not in that double-digit loss column. Brendan, your thoughts on the Eagles?
Yeah, I completely agree with everything Jacob said. Giants win more games if you want to make the playoffs, period. Like, in my opinion, honestly, none of the NFC East teams should be in the playoffs. Washington shouldn't be in the playoffs, but that's me. I think the whole playoff system should be changed in all sports. But Philadelphia, what are you playing for? Like, you had nothing to lose. Go win the game with Hurts. Like, a win like that, if they wouldn't won that game with Jalen Hurts coming from behind and beating Washington the way they did, the way they could have, gives a young quarterback like Jalen Hurts so much confidence going into the offseason. Like, Peterson took that chance away from him, took the chance away from coming from behind and getting a huge win as a rookie going into your sophomore year, that a lot of quarterbacks would, yearn for, would love to have. But Peterson took that away. And he talks out of his mouth in post-game interviews saying, no, we were trying to win that game. But yet, we also wanted to give Sudfeld a chance. Like, those two just don't match up. Like, you can't try and win the game with your third-string quarterback. Go try and win the game with your rookie quarterback, who's going to be your franchise quarterback. Like, that just does not make any sense. And if they were trying to lose the game, if that really was what they were trying to do, which I think it was, I think they were trying to lose that game. You're playing for the 7th draft pick, the 6th draft pick. You're not playing for number 1. Like, you're not going to draft a quarterback this year.
Yeah.
You need someone on defense, a lineman, but they're going to obviously be there at number 6 or number 5 or number 7. So, like, it just does not make any sense to me. That's the worst coaching decision I've seen in a long, long time, and I'm a Browns fan. So, this does not add up. What Peterson did, none of it added up. None of it made any sense. I feel bad for Jalen Hurts, because a win like that to knock off a Washington team that was number 1 in the division, he could have had a huge win on his resume going into a rebuilding offseason for Philadelphia. Feel really bad for him. This does not make any sense. And I'd also like to point out, I loved Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth's commentary at the end of that game, because they summarized the whole NFC East division up in a few minutes. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, so going back to what you're saying, it hurts. I didn't mean to say it like that, but in the sense that he doesn't get that big win. But Peterson also has lost a lot of trust from his players going into next season, and that's also going to hurt the Eagles now. How can you play if you don't trust the coach? You saw it in Cleveland with Freddie Kitchens there at the end of his tenure, which is the final 4 games. The Browns were not playing for Kitchens. They were just going out in the field to be a body. And it's going to be interesting to see what we see next year from the Eagles if Peterson is still at the top. A lot of people calling for his firing now, so we'll see how the Eagles go about that. Will there be a 7th vacancy in the NFL as far as head coaches goes? We have 6 right now. Alex, your thoughts on the Eagles?
Yeah, I don't think anyone can trust Peterson anymore, whether it's the fans or the players. I just think, it's like the guy said, what he did, it's not justifiable. I mean, like Brendan said, this is a horrible call that I've seen, and I'm also a Browns fan. But, yeah, you don't do that. But as far as the Giants go, at the same time, I wouldn't say that this is the reason why you didn't make the playoffs, because it's not. You had a whole season to do so much better, and it couldn't have even mattered, even if this did happen and you had more wins. I don't think you could make this as an excuse as to why you didn't make the playoffs. So I think it's just kind of a mess on both sides.
Yeah, and I agree. We'll see what happens to Doug Peterson or as Brendan said a couple weeks ago, Jock Peterson, the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. But no, I'm messing with Brendan. As you get talking, I know when you're talking and Peterson, yeah, I got you. But no, we'll see what happens with him. Will there be a 7th vacancy in head coaching? We'll see. But keeping on the head coaching topic and the Browns, since you guys mentioned you guys were Browns fans, Stefanski and Bitonio test positive for COVID-19 and will miss the wild card game. Also, Rashard Higgins and Jedrick Wills are cited for drag racing after clinching the playoff spot. Brendan, I'll start with you since you got the Browns pullover on. Is this the death of the Cleveland Browns for the 2020 season?
No, I'm not saying it's the death.
Okay.
First off, the drag racing thing isn't news, in my opinion. Like, celebrating going to playoffs.
Did you see their tweets?
Yeah. Like, it's
Will's
whatever.
like, I was just trying to beat him off the line.
It's whatever. Pay the fine.
Oh my
Move
gosh.
on. But look, man, like, there's nothing that you can really do about this.
Yeah.
Like, Stefanski was one of the most strict coaches in all of the NFL, and saying to his players, look, we have to be vigilant about this COVID-19 thing. We got to be safe. And they were. Like, you saw the post-game videos from the locker room. They were all wearing masks and celebrating. Steelers, they make a TikTok without masks on. And they don't get it, apparently.
Yeah.
Nothing that you can really do. Like, you're going to have Alex Van Pelt calling the plays this weekend. Baker Mayfield, like, the Browns are at the point in the season where they know the offense. Baker Mayfield can go out there, call plays by himself, and put up touchdowns. It does hurt that you lose Joel Bitonio, the main guy on that offensive line. So the run game may not be as dominant as it has been this season. The offensive line is beat up. Losing Daryl Hodge, in my opinion, isn't that bad. You still got Higgins and Landry and your tight ends that you can throw to. But obviously not having Stefanski on the sideline hurts, because when it comes down to strict situations and tough decisions in game, Alex Van Pelt hasn't really had to do that. And Mike Prefer, who's going to be the acting head coach, they haven't really had to do that this season.
Yeah.
So I still give them a chance against Pittsburgh this year. I'm not saying it's a death, but it's just all really unfortunate circumstances that no other team in the league has to deal with right now.
I think it's a load of baloney that they can't get something set up for Stefanski from home to call the plays. They can get Kirk Herbstreit 17 screens with live feed from 17 different angles so he can call the Rose Bowl or the Sugar Bowl for Ohio State and Clemson from home, but they can't get the head coach. It's not because, I don't know, I just feel for Stefanski. You have this great of a year, you finally turn a franchise into a playoff team, and you're not even going to get to be at the first game. I think they should try to figure out something for him to call from home, but they're not going to. It's the Browns. If we can get him out of there, why not, Jacob?
So first off, to Jedrick and Hollywood Higgins, I mean, you're just stupid. Like, don't defend yourself. You just got caught drag racing. I agree with Brendan. It's not that much of a story, but just don't lie about it. Like, you were just immature in the moment. Just don't lie about it.
Well, there was reports that there might have been marijuana possession too, but they haven't confirmed that. Yeah. That's going to be the kicker. That's going to make it news.
Yeah. And I think if there was marijuana, they probably would get suspended, but I don't know anymore. Like, just because the Browns literally don't have a team at this point, it seems like. So I don't even know if the Browns are going to do anything to them. But the death of the Cleveland Browns, to me, kind of started with the game this past weekend. And it was mainly because the Browns are going all out against the JV Steelers, really. And Steelers only lost by 2 points.
I don't like that take. I'm sorry. I don't like that take in the sense that Mason Rudolph was the only player on offense that was back up. Everybody keeps saying you played our second string. Mason Rudolph, Cameron Hayward, T.J. Watt, and Ben Roethlisberger were the only three that didn't play. Mason Rudolph didn't look that much worse than Ben Roethlisberger has these past 5 weeks, and the defensive line didn't play terrible. Everybody's making it sound like they were missing Minka Fitzpatrick, Joe, like they were missing their whole secondary, their whole defense. They were missing 3 starters, and then they're like, well, we also had a couple guys out to injury. Right. Okay, the Browns have had 7 starters missing over the last few weeks because of COVID, and their secondary has been missing all season long, which all of a sudden Greed Williams' nerves are better, so we'll see if he plays.
We picked off Mason Rudolph. We sacked him like 3 times, plus our offense isn't an offense that's going to put up 50 points. The Tennessee game just so happened to be, a fluke that we put up 48 points. Our offense is an offense that's going to take 9 minutes off the clock and, keep the opposing offense on the sideline. Like, 24 points was pretty, measurable for the whole season for the Browns.
Yeah, I don't think the Browns look that bad, in my opinion. But, sorry, Jacob, to interrupt. Continue.
Oh, you're good. I see what you guys are saying about that, but my whole thing is Mason Rudolph can't throw the deep ball like Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger's got better connections with all those wide receivers, and Mason Rudolph still kind of lit up the Browns' defense in a way. So I just think Ben's going to come in. I think he's going to light up the Browns' defense. But I think that Stefanski not being able to call the plays is pretty big just because of that connection he has with Baker Mayfield. I mean, Baker can rely on Stefanski. Stefanski can rely on Baker. So when you lose one of those two, I think it's going to affect them a little bit. And Bitonio not being there to provide protection. And then Nick Harris is on the IR now too. So really, who's going to come in and replace Bitonio? So I think that's going to be big for the Browns as well. But I just think giving Big Ben time to really look at the defense from the sidelines, seeing what Mason Rudolph did to the defense, I just think the defense is too beat up right now too that I think Ben's going to come out there and he's going to light them up. And I just don't see how the Browns are going to win unless Baker Mayfield comes out and puts up a great performance, which he definitely can, but the odds are against him obviously right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. The odds are definitely against him. Alex, your thoughts on the news for the Browns?
It's just a lot of unfortunate situations, I guess, happening at once for the Browns. I mean, you celebrate and then all of this unfolds. But, I mean, as far as Higgins and Wills, I mean, I think they were definitely caught in the moment. I don't think it's that big of a story. I agree. If marijuana was involved, that might be the kicker. But for right now, I'm thinking it was just they got ahead of themselves in celebrating. And I don't think it's that big of a – we've seen way worse from other teams. But as for Stefanski, I mean, I don't think this is going to be the death of the Browns. At least I like to think not. I mean, they've come this far. I would just hope that they could pull through. I mean, I know they're playing the Steelers again, and I know, like, the Steelers last week, they didn't have all of, like, their starters online. But I just feel like if the Browns had the same fire to beat him once, I mean, they could possibly beat him again. I mean, Baker Mayfield's definitely going to have to pull through, and they are going to have someone filling in for Stefanski. But, I mean, I don't know. My argument with that is kind of like you guys said. I don't understand why. I mean, just because he has COVID, they can't phone him in from home. I mean, I don't know if they're trying to punish him for getting COVID, which, I mean, Stefanski is he's played it so safe all year long. I don't think it's fair if it's a punishment per se. So I guess I don't understand why they can't phone him in from home and he could just communicate. I mean, I get it. He can't be there, but he could still talk to his players and still somewhat be there and help his team. So I don't really understand all of that, but regardless, I don't think it's the death of the Browns. I think they're still going to try to pull through. I mean, hope for the best for the
You cut out there at the end.
Sorry, where did I cut off at?
I just said hope for the best, and then it just.
Oh, no, I was just saying that I don't. Sorry, I got a bad network thing there just when you said that. I don't think it's over yet. I think regardless of what happens with Stefanski, like I said, I don't understand why they're not doing more to have him there somewhat present, even if it's virtually.
Yeah.
But I think they are going to have someone fill in for him. Baker Mayfield's going to have to give it all he's got because now the Steelers, they're going to have their starters. They're going to bring it obviously more than they did last week, but I still think that the Browns have a shot. So I don't completely the death of them yet. I think there's more to happen.
Yeah, I'm surprised too in the sense they're not doing more as obviously when a player comes down you can't have them on the sideline. But give them a booth. You're telling me Cleveland doesn't have one room to spare for their head coach. But anyways, Bill Barnwell releases his top 3 finalists for the regular season awards. Here they are as follows. What you're going to do is you're going to make these picks. You're going to make your picks for these awards. It doesn't have to be someone on this list because these aren't the finalists. These are Bill Barnwell's finalists. So if there's someone that you want to add to the list and say that you think has a shot at winning the award, go ahead. For Coach of the Year, Barnwell has Green Bay's Matt LaFleur, Pittsburgh's Mike Tomlin, and Buffalo's Sean McDermott. Kind of surprised not to see Brian Flores or Kevin Stefanski on this list. For Comeback Player of the Year, Alex Smith from the Washington Football Team, Jason Verrett from San Francisco, and Rob Gronkowski from Tampa Bay. I think we'll all have the same pick there, or at least we should. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Washington's Chase Young, Tampa Bay's Antoine Winfield Jr., and Indianapolis' Julian Blackmon are Bill Barnwell's top 3. For Offensive Rookie of the Year, Justin Jefferson from Minnesota, Justin Herbert from the Chargers, and Tristan Wirfs from Tampa Bay. For Defensive Player of the Year, Xavier Howard, the interception leader from Miami, T.J. Watt, the sack leader from Pittsburgh, and Aaron Donald from the Rams. He's just Aaron Donald. He makes the list whether it's a bad year or not. Offensive Player of the Year, Kansas City's Travis Kelce, New Orleans' Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry from Tennessee, who reached 2,000 yards in rushing this season. And then for Most Valuable Player, I think this is a pretty consensus top 3. Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen, the 3 quarterbacks. Jacob, I'll start with you. What are your picks for these awards?
So my Coach of the Year, I was going to pick Brian Flores if the Dolphins would have made the playoffs, but I just think the fact that they didn't make the playoffs kind of turns me off for him. So I'm going to go Sean McDermott here. I think that he definitely helped Josh Allen develop into what he has become this year. And I really think we can say that the Bills are legitimate threats in the AFC now. And I think it is in large part due to what he has done there. Matt LaFleur was kind of up there for me too, but it's just the fact that they have the same record that they did last year. I just felt like he didn't really deserve it just because they had the same record, but he's done a great job as well. Comeback Player of the Year, I mean, how can you go against Alex Smith? I mean, this shouldn't even be disputed at all. Alex Smith is the winner of this award. And then the Defensive Rookie of the Year, Chase Young reminds me a lot of what Nick Bosa did last year with the 49ers, completely changing that defense. Now, I'm not saying that Chase Young's taking the Washington Football Team to the Super Bowl, but he shows to me a lot like what Nick Bosa did with that defense. So I think that Chase Young has come in and really changed the defense for the better, so he's Defensive Rookie of the Year. Offensive Rookie of the Year, I mean, this was a tough one for me because both Justin Herbert and Justin Jefferson had historic rookie years, but I'd have to go Herbert right now. I mean, he just totally changed the narrative, I think, of the Chargers, especially down the stretch. He had a great stretch run to end the season. Really, after that 45-0 loss to the Patriots, he looked really good, like a superstar that he can possibly become. But Justin Jefferson's a really close second to me. And I was kind of shocked to see Tristan Wirfs on there over James Robinson. I think James Robinson deserves a little bit more respect, especially because he was undrafted this year too. Defensive Player of the Year is a tough one too. I'm not on the TJ Watt train. I personally think it's either Xavier Howard or Aaron Donald. And right now, I think I'm going to go Xavier Howard, actually, just because of the 10 interceptions. That's really impressive to me. He led the league in pass breakups, too. I think he was a big reason why the Dolphins were in the playoff hunt, too. The Dolphins' defense was really good this year, and I think he was the leader of that defense. Offensive Player of the Year, I'm going to go Derrick Henry here. Travis Kelce is definitely hard to pass up on that because he had a historic year for tight ends. But Derrick Henry going over 2,000 yards. Personally, I would have him in my top 3 of MVPs. And this is not a knock on Pat Mahomes, but I'd probably take Pat Mahomes off the list. He's been great on the best team, but it's just he does it time and time again. I'd have Rodgers, Josh Allen, and Derrick Henry up there. And my MVP is Aaron Rodgers. I mean, this past week just showed me that he definitely is the MVP. I mean, he's done nothing wrong this year. I think that he's has the potential to lead Green Bay back to the Super Bowl, and he's just outplayed everybody else, in my opinion.
Yeah. Like the picks, like the replacements as well. Brendan, your picks.
Yeah, for Coach of the Year, kind of surprised that Stefanski is not in the top 3 here. I don't think Matt LaFleur is really even the reason that Green Bay is where they are this year. Surprised that Mike Tomlin is one of the top 3. As a Browns fan, I would pick Stefanski, but I agree with Jacob. Sean McDermott has turned around Buffalo with the help of Josh Allen in a way that none of us saw coming. For the Bills franchise, it's always great to see him. To see Buffalo be in the top 5 in the NFL, so I'll go with McDermott there. Comeback Player of the Year is easy. Alex Smith, no doubt. Defensive Rookie of the Year, got to go with Chase Young. Love his play style. Love his attitude. What he said this past few days about, I want Tom going up against Tom Brady this coming weekend. I love that kind of attitude from a rookie. For Offensive Rookie of the Year, have to go with Justin Herbert. He's not playing like a rookie this year for the Chargers. He's playing like, already a top 10 quarterback in the league, and he will be one of the best quarterbacks in the league in the future, I think. Defensive Player of the Year, again, I would have thought, if Myles Garrett didn't miss those 2 games this year due to COVID, his sack total would be a little higher than it is, but it's not. I'm going to go Xavier Howard. I think that category is kind of a toss-up, in my opinion. Offensive Player of the Year, easy. Calvin Kamara. What he did against Minnesota was amazing, and just week in and week out, he runs over defenses more so than Derrick Henry. And Travis Kelce, yes, he's had a great season, but I just don't think that he can compete with Kamara in that category. And the most valuable player, Aaron Rodgers. Talk about, a comeback Player of the Year. He's come back and, taken the league by storm. Easy MVP choice for me.
Love it. Alex.
Yeah, I'm also surprised by a lot of these. I mean, for Coach of the Year, I'm really surprised Stefanski's not on this list. I mean, he took a team that was pretty much notorious for losing, who was 0-16 not too long ago, and took this team to the playoffs. I mean, they had an incredible season. I'm really surprised that he's not up there, but I guess in that same light, I mean, Sean McDermott, he did the same thing for the Bills to a similar degree. So I guess with that same spirit, he would be my pick for them. I mean, comeback player of the year, without a doubt, Alex Smith. Defensive rookie of the year, I'm going to go with Julian Blackmon because I think for Indianapolis, I think he's made a great turnaround, especially at the end. For offensive rookie of the year, this one's a tough one, but I think I might go with Herbert on this one too. I think because, again, I think towards the end of his season, he's made a great turnaround. But it's definitely a little bit more difficult of a decision. For defensive player of the year, I put Xavier Howard. And then offensive player for the year, I'm going to put, I'd say Derrick Henry. And then for the most valuable player, I'm definitely putting Aaron Rodgers because I think he can definitely lead Green Bay back to a Super Bowl, which would be exciting. But those would be my picks.
Love it. For me, Coach of the Year, Sean McDermott. Same reason. I think it's him and Stefanski turning around two great fan bases that love to see a winner but never get to. Both find a winner this year, but Buffalo 13-3. I think that's the edge, and the development of Josh Allen, as you guys mentioned, is a big part of it. Comeback player of the year, Alex Smith. That man was told he was going to die. That man was told he was going to get amputated. His leg was going to get amputated. That man was told he was never playing football again. 36 surgeries later, he's in the playoffs. So I don't think there's any discussion. Jason Verrett and Rob Gronkowski almost feel like they were just thrown on that list because they couldn't think of anyone after Alex Smith. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Chase Young. Like you guys said, he turned that defense around just with a pass rush. Offensive Rookie of the Year, I'm going Justin Jefferson. I agree, Herbert, great quarterback. I think he is the future of the Chargers, but I think Jefferson filled a big void in that receiver spot that Minnesota needed after letting go of Stephon Diggs. And, he broke Randy Moss's records. How could you not pick him? But I also love the tape I saw on the draft, from the draft last year when Minnesota saw the Eagles take Jalen Reagor. They started laughing at the Eagles and said, "Call Jefferson. Call him now." They were kind of surprised that the Eagles passed on Jefferson, and now we know why. The potential that Jefferson had was shown this season. Defense player of the year, I'm going Xavier Howard. I agree, picks are more impressive than sacks. You see several players with 10-plus sacks. Watt only had 12.5. You rarely see a player with 10-plus interceptions, and Howard with 10, leading the NFL. Very impressive to me. Offensive player of the year, I'm going Derrick Henry as well. Anytime you can get 2,000 yards rushing, that's amazing. MVP, we're all in agreement here. Aaron Rodgers, and I agree. Patrick Mahomes has kind of fallen off for me. I'd have Josh Allen in my 2 spot as far as MVP voting goes, but Aaron Rodgers, far and away, has that Packers team where they are. Him and Devontae Adams, quite the duo there, and I also believe Aaron Rodgers has the potential of getting them back to the big game this season because of the way he's played. So Aaron Rodgers is my MVP. So now let's fill out some brackets, guys. We have the NFL playoff field set. So in the number 1 seed of the AFC, the Chiefs at 14-2, they'll play the lowest remaining seed in the divisional round. So it all depends on how it plays out. If the Colts beat the Bills, they'll automatically play in the Colts. But if the Bills win and the Browns win, they'll play in the Browns. It all depends on who that lowest remaining seed is. Number 2 seed Buffalo Bills at 13-3 will host the number 7 seed Colts, finishing 11-5. The 3 seed Steelers at 12-4 will host the 6 seed Browns at 11-5. And the 4 seed Titans at 11-5 will host the 5 seed Baltimore Ravens at 11-5. A lot of 11-5s. And you got to feel for those Dolphins. 10-6. Great year. Brian Flores, you were building a great team down there. You'll be back. Don't worry. Now for the NFC, the Packers get the 1 seed at 13-3. They'll play the lowest remaining seed in the divisional round. Saints, the 2 seed at 12-4, will host the 7 seed Bears at 8-8, getting in because the Cardinals lost. 3 seed Seahawks at 12-4 will host the 6 seed Rams at 10-6. And we're still wondering the Jared Goff situation, as they're kind of staying hush-hush about it right now. So we'll see where that goes. Number 4 football team at 7-9 will host number 5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 11-5. So we get that sub 500 team in the postseason. So, Brennan, I'll start with you. what is your playoff bracket picks? Remember, Kansas City and Green Bay will play the lowest remaining seed, so just counter that into your bracket. Who wins your Super Bowl, and what's the score?
So we're going straight through the AFC Championship and stuff like that?
Yep.
All right, so in the AFC, Cleveland-Pittsburgh this weekend. I've got Pittsburgh winning. Indianapolis-Buffalo, easy one. Buffalo wins. And then Baltimore-Tennessee, same as last year. Can Lamar Jackson finally win a playoff game? That's a huge question. I think he does. I think he gets the job done this year. So that puts Pittsburgh playing Buffalo, and then Baltimore playing Kansas City. And then Baltimore, Kansas City. I've got Kansas City winning, moving to the AFC Championship. And then Buffalo, Pittsburgh. Buffalo wins, moves to the AFC Championship. And then that's where I've got Kansas City and Buffalo, with the Chiefs moving on to the Super Bowl, back-to-back years. In the NFC, I've got Seattle beating LA this weekend, even if the Rams have Goff. I think Russell Wilson be too much. Chicago, New Orleans, easy one. New Orleans winning. And then Tampa Bay and Washington. As much as I have a feeling Tampa Bay is going to win this game, I think Washington pulls the upset. It's not an upset if you look at the seedings, but it technically is an upset. I think Chase Young sacks Tom Brady like 2 or 3 times, and they pull off the win. So that means Washington plays Green Bay and Seattle plays New Orleans. And then New Orleans beats Seahawks to move to the NFC Championship, and then Green Bay beats Washington to move to the NFC Championship. So as you can see, I've got top seeds on each side playing in the NFC Championship, and then that means I've got New Orleans beating Green Bay. I think the Saints this year, just as the way that it works this year, it's no home field advantage. Green Bay isn't allowing any fans. I think Drew Brees finally gets back into the Super Bowl where he has belonged in a long time, just hasn't been able to get there. But unfortunately, Pat Mahomes is in his way, and the Chiefs win the Super Bowl back-to-back years.
Does this have anything to do with the fact that Drew Brees is probably retiring?
Yeah, I was thinking that because I was listening to Sports Talk this morning, and they're like, does Drew Brees play one more year if he doesn't get a Super Bowl this year? And they're like, well, maybe not, And I think next year, if he does play next year, he announces before the season farewell tour for Drew Brees. So I don't know.
So like a David Ortiz kind of thing. What's the score for the Chiefs-Saints game?
So that's going to be like 35-28.
So good.
New Orleans comes up short.
Okay. Jacob, run me through your bracket.
Yeah, so AFC, in the wild card, I think the Bills are going to handle the Colts pretty easily. I think the same goes for the Steelers over the Browns. I think that those two are just destined to play each other in the divisional. Titans and Ravens. I mean, Lamar just hasn't played well in the playoffs. And I think he will play better in this game, but I just don't see him getting it done, honestly. I think Tannehill's playing really good. I think Derrick Henry's obviously going to be Derrick Henry. And I got the Titans winning a really close one right now. I really want to pick Baltimore because Lamar has been on a tear lately, but I just believe in Tennessee a little bit more. And then so that means in the divisional, Kansas City would play Tennessee. I think that would be a close game too, but I'd still say Kansas City would beat the Titans. Then I think Buffalo would easily handle the Steelers in the divisional round. And then when it comes to AFC Championship, Kansas City, Buffalo, I think Josh Allen can have a really good game in that game, but I mean, it's Pat Mahomes. I just think Kansas City's going to win the AFC. The NFC, I think that the Saints will most likely beat the Bears. I think it's going to be closer than what people think, just because I think Drew Brees is so beat up right now, and Alvin Kamara, we don't even know if he's going to be there. So I just have this feeling New Orleans is going to struggle, but they're clearly the better team, so they're going to beat the Bears. I have this feeling with the Seahawks and Rams. I was really high on the Rams, then I was really down on the Rams. And I know that Kyler Murray didn't really play last week, so that's probably why the Cardinals only scored 7 points. But I just really believe in this Rams defense. And I think that they can stop Russell Wilson enough to win a really close game, probably by a field goal or less. I have them upsetting the Seahawks right now, also because you don't have that home field advantage anymore. You don't have the fans there. So I think if the Rams play a complete game defensively, which I think they can, that they can pull off the upset over the Seahawks. And then I think the football team is going to make it close against the Buccaneers, but it's Tom Brady. I just think the Buccaneers are going to pull it off in a close one there too. So in the divisional, that would mean Green Bay and the Rams. The Rams wouldn't do it 2 weeks in a row. Aaron Rodgers would beat them. So I got the Packers beating the Rams. And then New Orleans, Tampa Bay. New Orleans has had Tampa Bay's number, but it's Tom Brady in the playoffs yet again. So I was really high on New Orleans making the Super Bowl last week when I made my prediction, but now I've completely changed. I think the Buccaneers would beat the Saints in this situation and advance to the NFC Championship. And the NFC Championship, this is a really close game for me. And I think you can go either ways between Green Bay or Tampa Bay. But if there's one guy that knows how to play in the snow too in the NFC, it's Tom Brady. He did it in New England all these years. So I got the Buccaneers pulling off this upset over Aaron Rodgers right now, so we can see the Super Bowl that we all want to see, whether you want to say it or not. You want to see Pat Mahomes and you want to see the GOAT Tom Brady going at it in the Super Bowl. And I think that the Chiefs are going to win it. Chiefs 34, Buccaneers 28. I just have this feeling that it's going to be a great game.
That's the Falcons-Patriots score.
Is too much.
That was the Falcons-Patriots score when the Patriots came back. But
there you go.
Alex, your bracket.
Okay, so starting with AFC, I think Bills definitely 100% over the Colts. For the Browns and Steelers, okay, I really want to say Browns. I know it might sound crazy because the Steelers are probably going to end up pulling through, but just in this moment, I'm going to say Browns because I have hope for them. Okay. So I'm not saying I don't know. It's probably going to be the Steelers, but I'm just really hoping for the Browns because I think that would be so awesome. And between the Titans and the Ravens, I don't know. I'm going Ravens because I know they've had a bad past with playoff games, but I just feel like this year might be different because the past couple of games, I think Lamar Jackson has just been really playing through and having a little bit more fire than I've seen previously. So I'm going with the Ravens for this one. So then that would mean Kansas City and the Browns, and then the Bills and the Ravens. I think in that situation, it'll probably be the Bills and the Chiefs inevitably. But then between those for the AFC championships, I'm thinking Chiefs because I don't know. I feel like something tells me that they're just going to pull through over the Bills. Although I feel like the Bills do have it in them to possibly defeat the Chiefs, I think that the Chiefs are going to ultimately win the AFC. And then for NFC, I think New Orleans Saints are definitely going to go over the Chicago Bears. It may not be easy, but I think ultimately it's going to be the end-all be-all for the Saints. For the Seahawks and the Rams, I'm going to go Seahawks for this one. Just, I don't know, something tells me that the Seahawks are going to pull through. And then for Washington and Tampa Bay, I'm going with Tampa Bay this year. So after NFC, that would mean, hold on, I'm having
Tampa Bay, Green Bay.
What?
You'd have Tampa Bay, Green Bay, and then New Orleans, Seattle.
Yes. Yeah, I'm going Green Bay and New Orleans, but I think the Super Bowl is ultimately going to be between the Chiefs and the Packers.
Rematch of Super Bowl I.
What?
Rematch of Super Bowl I.
Yeah.
State Farm would have a heyday. State Farm would have a heyday if that's the Super Bowl. They're two guys on State Farm commercials, Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. Who's winning the game, Alex?
Oh gosh. I don't know. I think I'm going to go with Green Bay on this one. I think it's going to be a close game. I think probably maybe between 10 points, but I don't know. I think I'm going to go with the Packers on this one. Something tells me that they're going to have a fire and pull through and try to defeat the Chiefs. I think they're just going to have that little bit extra fire in them, but I'm going to go with Packers for this one.
So the same outcome as Super Bowl one as well.
Yeah. Little repeat there.
There we go. Here's my takes. AFC, Bills handle the Colts pretty easily. Steelers take down the Browns since Stefanski can't be there. I think that's the deciding factor, and I think, unfortunately, the Steelers get the win. Titans, Ravens, I'm going Titans for the knockout punch 3 in a row against the Ravens. They knocked them out of the playoffs last year. They beat them in the regular season this year, and I think Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill knock them out for a third time in a row. So that means Titans-Chiefs. I'm going Chiefs here. I think Patrick Mahomes gets that 1 week of rest, and he comes out with some fire, takes down the Titans in a high-scoring affair. And then I have the Bills handling the Steelers once again, as they already did this season. I think it's similar to that game. And the Bills move on to the AFC Championship. And Bills Mafia, you are going to the Super Bowl in my bracket. Bills take down the Chiefs. Josh Allen takes down Patrick Mahomes. And the Buffalo Bills will be playing for the Lombardi Trophy as they try to win it for the first time ever. Going to the NFC, Saints take down the Bears pretty easily. I think we saw a flash of what the real Bears are last week when they play a good team. And they went down by 19 against the Packers. Seahawks, Rams. I got the Seahawks winning this one, especially with the uncertainty of Jared Goff. Yes, the Rams' defense is lethal, but are they going to be able to score is the question. And for the Washington football team, Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, I'm going the Washington football team as Chase Young has himself a game. Alex Smith proving why, I know it's a regular season award, but proving why he should be comeback player of the year as they get the win there. That means Packers taking on the football team. I think this one's not even close. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers handle them with ease. And then Saints, Seahawks, I have the Saints winning this just because the Seahawks have showed their inconsistency and Drew Brees trying to get another shot. But he comes up short as Aaron Rodgers and the Packers stop the Saints from making the Super Bowl. And it's Packers-Bills, two teams used to the cold, two teams with great fan bases. They finally get to see these two teams battle out on the big stage. And the Bills take down the Packers in a 38-28 ball game. Josh Allen, your Super Bowl MVP. Buffalo Bills. I'm hopping on the Bills Mafia train. They're my Super Bowl favorite right now, and I think they take down the Packers in the big game. So, with that being said, that is it. It is time for last call. As I told you, we had a lot of football to talk when the playoffs start. It's going to be a long stretch here, but in a couple weeks, in about a month, it'll be all basketball and maybe some baseball if baseball ever comes around. But it's time for last call. Are you guys ready for the spring semester or what? Jacob, I'll start with you. Are you ready for the spring semester, and what class are you most looking forward to?
All right, so this break was really nice, and I feel like I'm kind of ready. But as a freshman, it was kind of weird, like adjusting to college life, and you finally feel like that you know what to expect, like you're fully adjusted to college life, and then you go on a 7-week break back where you're living at home. So I think it's going to be weird at first to go back right now. But I am ready. I miss my friends up there. So I'm excited about it. And the class I'm most looking forward to, sports sales class with Dr. K, because that's going to be his last semester, I believe, of him teaching there. So I really tried hard to get that class, and I was really happy that I got in. And I just want to pick his brain because I know that he has a lot of knowledge of the sports industry. So I definitely want to see – I just want to get to know him a lot better and really want to pick his brain for that. But also, I'm taking a marketing class, and I kind of have an interest in marketing, so I think that could be interesting too. But, yeah, I just want to see my friends, but I'm definitely going to miss home too.
Yeah, I'm happy that you got into that sports sales class with Dr. K as well. I feel like that sports sales class needs to be taught by Dr. K. Brendan probably agrees with me as we took it together. But Dr. K, as he would say, a rock star in the industry, and it's a really good class, and I'm glad you are able to have Dr. K in that sales class before he departs. Brendan, are you ready for the spring semester, and what class are you looking forward to in your final semester?
Yeah, that's true. Dr. K does use the word rock star a lot. Like anyone he describes, he's a rock star working for the San Jose Sharks.
I love it.
But Yeah, but for me, I've been at home longer than what break is normally. I got home like 2 weeks before break started because of quarantine. So I've been here for like 9 weeks. That's over 2 months of a break. I can't wait to get back on campus. Just like to go into a classroom again, see my professors, see all the other guys and girls taking sport business classes, seeing you guys in person. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Just to live on campus again it's just going to be amazing for the final time. Will, you and I, final time doing this thing. Last ride.
One more.
And you and I are in. Remind me which class we're in. Is it the International Athletic Administration one or the Finance and Economics of Sport and Rec?
Finance one with Koba.
Okay, so you and I are in that class together. I can't wait for that one.
Yeah, one last ride in the sport business.
First time having Koba too.
Yeah, so, me too. So it's gonna be interesting to see.
For sure. Yeah.
Alex, are you ready for your second semester, and what class are you looking forward to?
It's going to be weird because, like Jacob said, being a freshman, it's weird having 7 weeks of just chilling at home and then going back and like doing work. But at the same time, I'm really excited because, I miss life on campus. Again, I miss seeing all you guys in person. I miss my roommate. I miss my friends. I miss just kind of having that life on campus, that little dose that you just don't get at home. I mean, I'm going to miss my family, but definitely miss being on campus, so I'm excited for that. I don't have any sports classes this semester, but the one class I'm really looking forward to, it's an honors creative writing class, and I absolutely love to write, so I'm really excited about that. But yeah, all in all, I'm really happy to be back.
Yeah, same. I'm excited, like you guys said, to see all you guys. Maybe we can do an in-person podcast or something. We'll see. Hopefully things start getting better. And then obviously, we should all be a little excited because spring sports are back on campus as basketball and football will be in full swing. Basketball starting in late January. Football will be happening in March. Basketball's Fridays and Saturdays. I was told it sounds like with the spectator rule, they're still pushing for media, so there's a really good shot we'll be calling basketball, according to Lenny, but only home games. And for football, it's the same thing. If that no spectator rule is looked at on March 1st and is still a thing, we'll only be doing home football games. So it might not be the same as normal, but at least there's something for us to call as far as live broadcast goes. So that's why I'm most excited for the spring semester, get some live broadcasts going. But class-wise, our finance class, Brendan, I'm really excited for that. Just one last ride in sport business, and I'm excited to get to know Koba as well before I depart the campus. And then my capstone, it's a social media capstone, and I love social media when it's used correctly, not for drama, but in the sense that it can help you run a business, help you run a radio show, help you run a podcast, or it can help you become a sports analyst without being a sports analyst. So I'm interested to find out more about social media in my capstone class. So that is what I'm looking forward to in my final semester. It's crazy, Brendan. You guys don't even know. It's your second semester, but it flies by. These 4 years fly by. I can't believe I graduate in May. But
we're gonna miss you guys.
It's so crazy. Like, this is it. Like,
I know.
After this May, I never have to take a class again.
Unless you want a master's degree.
Unless I get a master's, yeah.
I've been thinking about it, but I don't know. I kind of want a break at the same time. I'm just like, maybe a year off or something. But, yeah, it's crazy. The 8 semesters, the 4 years, they fly by. So enjoy it while you can. And I'm going to enjoy the crap out of my last 5 months, even if it's not also normal. But with that being said, this is the end of episode 10. So we're through 10 episodes here of RaiderZone Podcast. We'll keep this going through the spring semester. And hopefully after Brendan and I depart, you guys will keep it afloat in the Raider Student Media Sports Program. For Jacob Butar, Brendan Devaney, Alexandria Patron, I'm Will Brienza, and we thank you all once again for listening to RaiderZone, and we'll talk to you next week about some sports.